Hello, my name is Molly Mae. I am the maker behind Ponder and Ply. I've been knitting for about 8 years now and designing for about a year, or just under. And I thought it was about time for me to get in front of a camera, introduce myself, say hello, and let you get to know me. So this video is going to follow a slightly different format to the rest of the videos I have planned. I just wanted to take the time for you to get to know me both as a person and as a knitter. And then I'm going to crack on with more traditional videos like works in progress, things that I've finished recently, test knits that I'm doing, maybe even some stuff on the designs I'm coming out with. But for now, this is just a little introduction before the rest of the videos. Some of you may have noticed that I am British. I actually posted a how-to video on Instagram recently and a lot of you were surprised by my English accent. I am English, I'm actually from London. I was born in London, I was raised in London, and I am still in London. Longer terms, not really where I want to be. I want to move somewhere a lot greener, somewhere with a bit more fresh air and a bit less grey. But for now, this is where I am. Really, if I had my way, I'd move out to the countryside, get myself some pigs, knit jumpers for my pigs. Knit matching jumpers for my pigs. However, that's just not a reality right now. I'm currently wearing down my partner so that I can try and make that happen. So watch this space. But aside from that, yeah, I'm in London and that's where I see myself for the foreseeable future. Yeah. I've actually been planning on doing a podcast for quite a long time now. It's something that I really wanted to have a go at, but I actually went as far as filming some and I chickened out posting them. It makes me feel a little bit vulnerable and incredibly awkward. I am not this awkward, I think. When I'm not in front of a camera, I'm hoping it's something that's progressively going to get better. You'll have to watch the videos to find out whether that's true or not. So please bear with me. Know that this really is my first one, so hopefully you like it. I think I'm just going to crack on then. So what I plan on doing is just sort of asking myself a few questions, both knitting and non-knitting related, to help you guys get to know me. Unfortunately, I will be interviewing myself. I actually don't know a single knitter in London. I had a very good friend of mine who was once in London and we used to knit together. However, she abandoned me, moved away, so I'm a bit of a lonely knitter in London. There's an amazing community on Instagram, but unfortunately I don't meet up with anyone in London. So any London knitters, hit me up. I am looking for a friend. Yeah, so I'm interviewing myself. Super cool like that. So I guess I'm just going to crack on with it. I really hope you enjoy it. So I am definitely a project rather than a process knitter. I love having a finished garment. I love just getting to the end and the achievement you feel that you've made that thing with your hands. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely do love knitting as a process, but I love it up until about 3/4 of the way through a garment and then I am so ready to finish. I'm speeding through the end. I don't really enjoy the knitting for the last sort of maybe 10-15% because I'm so desperate to get it finished and wear it. I really love the feeling when you're sort of out and someone's like, ah, I love what you're wearing. You're like, oh, thank you so much. I actually made it. I didn't buy it in the store. Yeah, no, I love that feeling. And I like also having stuff that other people don't have and knowing that I made it myself, that what materials went into it. I know the labour that went into it. That's something I actually feel quite passionate about. I'll touch on another time. But yeah, I am definitely a project or product knitter rather than a process knitter. So I don't think anything that I eat is weird, but I do get told that I eat some odd combinations quite often. One thing I really love is sweet and salty things together. So I love like salty French fries with a banana milkshake. Either like dip them in if I want to be all polite with nice manners, or I'd shove some fries in my mouth and then take a slurp of a banana milkshake. The one problem with that is that I am dairy intolerant, so I really shouldn't be having that milkshake. Maybe I could get a dairy-free milkshake, but occasionally occasionally I have a regular milkshake and have to put up with feeling sick for a couple of days. It's the other thing that is kind of weird, but I grew up on it so I don't find it so weird, is Marmite and Dairy on toast. Actually, anyone that's not from England, even some English people, will find Marmite really weird. Why on earth would anyone like Marmite? I love Marmite. So Marmite, and then the sort of like salty bitteriness of Marmite and the creaminess of the Dairy, like it's like a cream cheese for anyone that doesn't know. I don't know where they have that brand, but I love it. So that's another weird food combination. So no surprise here, I am a thrower, as is the way in the UK, or anyone that was taught by someone from the UK. I actually learnt an interesting fact recently. A good friend of mine, Sorella, who I met via Instagram, let me know that the English style of knitting, so throwing, was actually created because the continental style showed too much wrist. So it was far too scandalous, and so we now knit in a way that has a much more minimal wrist movement to keep our wrists covered. So I knit the conservative way. That surprises me, it probably surprises most of my friends, but yes, I am a conservative knitter. Okay, so I don't know why I gave myself this question. I can never single out one animal that's my favourite above the rest, but I can give you my top three. So hippos. I love hippos. I just think they are so cute and chubby and lovely, and also they are sassy and ferocious and pretty dangerous. So I like that little combination. I could watch them for hours. I don't know if you've seen them swim underwater, but oh, I love it. So I also love monkeys. Monkeys have been my favourite animal for the longest time. I've always liked monkeys since I was really small. And my favourites are actually pygmy marmosets, so they grow to be about this big. And they are just so cute, and their tiny little faces. I actually really love pygmy hippos as well. I have a thing for small, tiny, cute little animals. That are supposed to be bigger, I guess, not just tiny little animals. But I really love monkeys. And then I guess the third and final one would be penguins. Penguins just make me laugh. I think I love the way they move. They're just so funny and cute, and when they're all fluffy as babies. And I've watched a lot of documentaries on penguins and I just can't get enough. I actually watch a lot of David Attenborough documentaries. It's one of my favourite things to watch while I'm knitting because they're really informative. You learn a lot just by listening. They're visually very pleasing, but you don't have to follow it in the way that you follow a complex film or something else, so I'm able to concentrate on my knitting too. I actually want David Attenborough to be my granddad. I love him so much. He's like the cutest old man ever. So David Attenborough, if you're watching, be my granddad. Thanks. So I have multiple whips at any one time. I am not a monogamous knitter. I'm actually a bit of a knitting slut. That's a good start to a podcast talking about risque wrists and slutty knitters, but it's true. I have lots of projects on the go. I actually keep this little white IKEA bin next to my sofa where I do most of my knitting, and that's filled with about 5 projects at the moment. I usually have, and then there's loads dotted around the house, so I can't even tell you how many I've got on the go. I like to have a few different things going at any one time, so I might have one of my own designs, for example, a test knit, something with colour work in it, something with cables, for example, and then I will always now have a project that's really simple. So it may be a really plain jumper or a scarf. It can be anything, but just as long as there's lots of rows of just plain stockinette or just knitting in the round. This is because I got to a point where I was doing tons of test knits, I was doing my own designs, and I felt like knitting wasn't downtime for me anymore. I had so much pressure, I wasn't sleeping well, and I was just worried about knitting all the time, and actually it's meant to be fun. The whole reason I knit is because I enjoy it, and I feel really calm and I find it really therapeutic. So yeah, so now I make sure I have a little side project on the go that I can pick up at any time. It doesn't require much attention from me, and I can just go through the motions and get that same benefit of knitting without worrying about, is this a good pattern, both for the tester, as a test knitter, like all of the maths work out, is this right, because you need to give them so much feedback, and then also from myself, like, is this good, how can I make it better? But yeah, I have multiple whips on the go. There's definitely going to be a theme with my questions that aren't knitting related. So I absolutely love food and I love animals. So sorry, but that's the way you can find the most about me. So my favourite sandwich. My favourite sandwich is a peanut butter and banana sandwich. If I had a choice of bread, I'd put it in a bagel, specifically a cinnamon and raisin bagel. I do quite like my sweet things, and I like it when the bagel's toasted and the peanut butter goes all melty and kind of like sticks your mouth together, but love it. So peanut butter and banana sandwiches are my favourite. Well, the answer's kind of both, to be honest. I have a huge stash, but I also buy yarn for specific projects. I actually do something really naughty where I will have tons of yarn in my stash. I decide to start a new project and I order yarn specifically for that project, but then I also add the odd ball or two on for my stash. So my stash is ever growing. Yeah, it's not my proudest moment. I know I need to start working through the stuff I already have. It's quite wasteful of me. Don't get me wrong, I have every intention of using it, I just haven't used it yet. I actually hide some of the stuff from my partner because I buy a lot of yarn. But yes, so both is my answer. Okay, so knitting takes up a lot of my spare time. I work full time, and so my spare time or free time is quite limited as it is. However, when I am not knitting and I am not at work, I like to lift heavy weights. That's one of my hobbies. I love it. I do it nearly every lunchtime during work and also occasionally at the weekend. It's just something really cathartic about putting on some really heavy music on your headphones, heading to the gym and just working up a sweat, lifting really heavy things. I really like being strong, so that's a passion of mine that sort of, I don't want to say contradicts knitting, because I think you should be able to do anything and whatever you enjoy, but you don't, as far as I'm aware, you don't often find weightlifters that knit or knitters that weightlift. Maybe you do. I'd love to know. Do you do both? And then I guess the other thing I really love to do is cooking. Now don't get me wrong, when I get home from work after a long day, the last thing I want to do is cook, and I do not enjoy cooking. However, when I have the time to do it, and baking as well actually, I really enjoy trying out new recipes. I actually went vegetarian 2 years ago. Not preaching, by the way, just pointing that out. You can eat whatever you want. If you want to eat meat, go for it. I just choose not to. Anyway, when I first went vegetarian, I found it really hard to make meals. All of my meals in the past centred around meat. So I found I had to be quite creative, started reading loads of recipes, and now sort of I ad-lib it with whatever I've got in the cupboards and chop things together, and I really enjoy that process when I've got the time to do it. Oh dear, knitting confessions. So my knitting confession is that I cannot make anything that's in a pair. Let me explain that. So recently I made my first ever sock. I was so proud, but I only ever made one. Not one pair of socks, one single sock. Actually, if I'm being entirely honest, that sock never got finished. The toe's still left. It's only about this much left, and I will get it done, but I don't see a pair happening anytime soon. It's currently living in my little IKEA bin of whips. Yeah, I'm not great at pairs. I actually have about 3 single pairs of mittens that have never had, sorry, not pairs. I have about 3 single mittens that have never had its pair made for it, and they're all very different, so they can't be worn together. And if you were to rummage through my family home, head back to my family home, there's probably a lot more of those. I'm not proud, but I am also not motivated enough to actually do something about it. So guilty as charged, I do not make the pears to things that I make. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that little insight, learning a little bit more about me. I guess before I finish this podcast, I would just like to give you a little bit more background about me and my knitting. So as I said earlier, I started knitting about 8 years ago. I would love to say that I had this beautiful story of me bonding with a grandma and all those lovely things, but it just didn't happen. I am a self-taught knitter. I taught myself from YouTube. So here I am, back to YouTube. What I actually would really love to do is to give back to the community. So I learnt from YouTube, and now that I'm in a position with enough knowledge, I would love to create some videos to give back to people so that other people can learn via YouTube too. I think it's a really great platform to share skills. I know it really helped me. So that's one thing I'm planning on doing. I actually did a little bit of market research on my Instagram recently, and I asked people what they want to see, and some of the things that they wanted to see were beginner videos on sort of how do you do basic stitches, casting on, casting off, that kind of stuff, some stitch pattern type videos, some tips and tricks for the experienced knitter, but also some videos on designing or how to start designing. That is something I definitely want to do some videos on. I know there's not a huge amount of resource out there. However, I would rather have about at least a year of designing under my belt before I start walking around confessing to be any kind of expert. I am an entirely self-taught designer. I've never been on any courses. My background is not in knitting or design. My background is actually in law. Quite different. Like I said, entirely self-taught. So anything I teach will be on the caveat that this is how I do it. You can do it lots of other ways. I'm sure there are a lot of other efficient ways of doing it. Personally, I work my way through an Excel spreadsheet and then tweak everything by hand. But yeah, that's something I want to do at some point, but the sort of how-tos and the beginner videos will definitely come a while before the designing videos. Actually, now while I'm on it, I might as well say my plans sort of as a designer. So I started designing this year. It was a really natural progression for me. Like I said, knitting for 8 years, and then a few years ago I started tweaking patterns, making quite big alterations, and then I started creating garments without a pattern. So I would make jumpers for myself or friends and family, simple designs based off of their measurements. So for me, I was like, well, how much harder can it be to make some patterns that other people can use? So much harder. For me, grading was a really steep learning curve. So I hadn't realised how much thought goes into making your pattern accessible to lots of people, and lots of sizes, and how different the body can be even when you're the same measurements. And I've definitely learned a lot just generally about anatomy, sort of like anatomy as well, and the way your body is, and how different bodies look in different garments. And my vision as a designer really is that bold, I want to say youthful but still accessible by people of all ages, slightly out there designs that bear a bit of skin, don't fit into that sort of classic knitting category. Like I've got a few crop tops out at the moment, they're not your traditional sort of knitwear. I just want people to feel really good about themselves and to feel confident in, I made this, I look really good, no matter what my body looks like. I just want to rock something that I've made. I really like bright colours in knitwear, which is funny because for years I would only wear black. I dyed my hair black. I wanted to sort of blend in, and as I've started knitting and making my own clothes, you've seen my hair's got brighter, my lipstick, my nails, my clothes, and I just want to stand out a bit more actually, because I'm so confident in myself is a completely different thing, but I'm confident in the stuff that I've made, and I feel really good, and I want people to notice that I've made these things. So that's the kind of vision that I'm trying to get across as a designer, while I'm also talking about different kinds of bodies. I currently grade my patterns from a 28-inch bust to a 62-inch bust. That does not include the ease. So for example, if a garment has 6 inches of ease, the largest measurement, my bust measurement on my garment would be 68 inches. that is good maths without an Excel spreadsheet. So I add any e's on top of the numbers I have provided, because otherwise you're not really catering for the audience, because it's not going to fit right. Say you do 62-inch bust, you can't claim, and that's including the e's, you can't claim that you go all the way up to a 62-inch bust, because that doesn't allow the designer's vision to fit that person properly. It is something that I've been thinking about a lot, about how I can expand those sizes even further. Currently I work off of the Craft Council measurements that they supply, and those are the measurements that I can get my hands on that I know are correct, or within reason and averages and whatever. I have made a note on my Ravelry, and I will say it again now, if any knitters see my patterns, would love to make them, and they're either end of that spectrum, please reach out to me. I will do my absolute best to help grade out the pattern for you, so that you get to wear it too. I really want my patterns to be accessible by people of all shapes and sizes. I love seeing people of all shapes and sizes in my patterns. So yeah, let me know. Okay, so I am quite conscious of rambling on my first ever video, so I am going to cut it off there. There's just one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that's sort of where I see this podcast going. It will of course be subject to any suggestions I get when I realise what works and what doesn't work, but for now my plan is to have sort of 2 streams. So I have one stream which is a more traditional type vlog podcast, where I talk about things that I'm working on, test knits I'm doing, things that I've finished recently, also talk about my designs, a bit of background when I release something, that kind of thing, and whatever else people end up wanting to hear from me. And then the other stream is going to be more educational, so I want to do some how-to videos, some beginner introduction videos, teach some skills, stitches, whatever people ask for really. I know I actually recently posted a picture of the wrap tank from Gorilla Knits, where I put sort of gold stitches into the vest, and I know I've already had a few requests for a tutorial on that, so something like that. Feel free to let me know what you want to see, what you want to learn, and I'm very happy to give that a record and help you out. I guess the last thing in that sort of stream of educational videos is I really want to do some customization videos. So at the moment you knit a pattern, and if you use a similar yarn or a popular yarn, you can have very similar things to other people, and I know a lot of people knit to get different kinds of stuff and make their clothes look one of a kind. So what I've started putting together is a collection of videos. Sorry, I'm losing my voice now, I'm not used to talking this much. I'm a chatterbox, but I'm not normally this bad. So I've started putting together some videos for my daisy crop top to start off with, which is a very simple crop top in garter stitch with a sort of cut out back. And I've started putting some videos together on how you can customise her to make her look entirely different. So add ruffles in certain places, change the straps, change the colours, add some stripes. I don't want to give too much away, but if you watch this space you'll be able to see. But my plan is to continue to do, especially at first, just videos on how to customise my patterns, but maybe further down the line I'll add really simple ways of customising other patterns too. But yeah, let me know what you want to see as well. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I do really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch me if you've made it this far, and hopefully I'll be back with a new video soon. Thanks so much.